Allan Draper, serial entrepreneur, owns 26 different companies from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So I'd like to hear how do you end up? I mean, you're a lawyer like me, and you have your partner in a law firm, but like me, you don't practice law anymore. How did you become a serial entrepreneur?
I think for me, being a serial entrepreneur it says more about who I am than what I do. It's more about my personality than what my day-to-day looks like. I'm the type of person, I'm such an easy pitch, right? People, I'm an angel investor also. So I'm actively looking for new companies to invest in. And I just love ideas. I love building stuff. And I have a little bit of that, distracted personality that a lot of entrepreneurs have, where a new idea comes along and I want to pursue it. The difference is, for several years, my first non-real estate business was a pest control company of all things. And I quit the law to start a pest control company in Detroit, Michigan. I was living in Phoenix at the time, working for a mid-sized firm, quit my law job, took my small kids and family and moved to Detroit. And a lot of people thought I was crazy, and there were moments where I did too. But for a couple of years, I think my saving grace was that was my end all be all. And I, with some partners, built that company up so that it would sustain itself both in terms of operations and financially. And from there, I was able to parlay that into some other businesses and just been doing that since.
So Detroit's a bit of a culture change from Phoenix.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, we handpicked that market. So and looking back on it, it was my brother's idea. It wasn't my idea for that specific market. We were looking at Pittsburgh, I think, maybe Buffalo. There were a few of them that we were looking at. And we liked that market, and it was one of the best things that we did. And a lot of times in business, if you're moving your feet and you're trying something, you get a little bit of luck dashed in there. And I like to say the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? I think, somebody famous said that at one point, but I think it's very true. And starting in Detroit and making that sacrifice of a well-paying, stable, reputable job to, I was literally white collar to blue collar one day to the next. I was just a very highly educated bug guy is what I became.
Well, it's interesting to me. I mean, pest control, when I think of pest control, I think it as a seasonal job in a climate like Detroit. Were you able to run it all year long, even in the depth of winter?
Yeah, we do. Yep. So we customize our services so that it's a little different, because critters are still, they don't all die.
Right.
And the winter can be, a little more difficult because they're trying to find warmth.
Right.
So,
So what other businesses are you engaged in?
So I have a digital marketing agency called Lizard SEM, based in Charlotte, North Carolina, that I started. And that company's scaling like crazy. I think we're, 15, 16 employees. We're distributed, so we don't have a central office. And so we have people in Canada, we have a developer in the Middle East, and we are growing faster than we have capacity right now. So I have a digital marketing agency. I'm developing a software called Rana Hub for the service industry. I own a law firm. I own several real estate holding companies. I have 2 podcasts. What else I'm forgetting? So I own a product company with some patents that was actually just on Shark Tank a week ago.
How do you manage all of this?
I have really good partners.
So in each of these businesses, you have other partners, and they're more the managing people that handle the day-to-day operations?
In some of the cases, in others, the pest control company, for example, we have just the leadership team handles it. So with the partners that I have 17 business partners. In a lot of cases, they handle the day-to-day with some of the things that we're doing.
So what's a typical day look like for you with all of these different things going on?
My days are very different from day to day, but similar from week to week. And, for example, today I'm creating content. We're developing a course. And so we were making videos, and that's very typical for a Thursday morning for me, is making videos. But this afternoon, I have a pitch scheduled. I have a meeting with my digital marketing agency. So it's really about getting stuff on my calendar that I do routinely, and then, having gaps where I can, make adjustments.
Wow. So what is it? I mean, obviously you have a pretty unique life. What is it about what you do that you like the most? It sounds like it's the variety of it all.
I love the variety. I love building companies. I am an entrepreneur, and I love the startup phase. So I'm an angel investor, also another thing that I do. And things keep coming to me. I own a chunk of a credit monitoring company, but I love early stage companies. I love the beginning. And I remember my first startup, I hated that phase. I was broke. I was trying to figure things out. I couldn't wait to get out of that stage. And once it passed for my first startup, I realized, no, that was the good stuff. That was the good stuff, because that's when I was growing, when my personal growth was going through the roof. And so I love early stage companies. And I think one of the greatest blessings that I have is control over my time. I don't have to do any of this. And when I got to the point in my life where financially I wasn't burdened, or I had to do one thing or another, I became really, really good at my job, because I dug down and I found out why I was doing it. And I could, move to Hawaii and spend the rest of my life on a beach. And I'm relatively young to be able to do that. And I'm blessed. I'm thankful for that. But that's not how I want to live my life. I want to live my life building companies and spending time with my family.
But it sounds like you get a big thrill out of the excitement of starting a company. And then once it's gotten going and it's starting to be successful, you hand it off to your partners and you go build another one, because you like the creativity and the excitement of the new idea.
That's exactly right. I actually had a goal for this year to not start any companies where I was an active member. And it's beginning of February, middle of February, we're getting towards, and I've already failed in that goal. So
well, tell me about leadership. I mean, are you the active leader in these, or are you sort of co-leading these with other people?
So they're all different. Some of them I'm more involved than others. None of them am I really involved in day-to-day aspects, hiring employees, things like that. Some of them, the credit monitoring company, I haven't seen financials for 4 months. I haven't had a conversation. Pest control company, I help with vision and hiring members of the executive team, talking about growth. So my roles are different, but in terms of my leadership style, one thing that, and it fits more my personality than anything, I didn't really have to become like this, but I am not a micromanager. I don't have the time, and that's not my personality. And what happens when you allow people to do what they're passionate for and what they're good at, is you find people that are better than you at doing that. But as owners and entrepreneurs, we look at it like, hey, I don't want somebody else to raise my kid. And I certainly don't in the actual meaning of that term, but when it's my company, man, some of the best things that we can do, some of the best decisions that we can make is getting out of people's way and letting them do it. And if they are not an autonomous, self-motivated individual, and you have that leadership structure, then they will not survive. And that has happened with me quite a bit.
So the secret is finding really high quality people who are self-motivated and can take responsibility, be accountable, and do the job, and let them go.
Let them go. So, and the way that you do that, the way that you find those individuals is you pitch them a vision. You don't talk about, I'll talk about pay when they ask me, but the people that I'm around, they believe what I believe. They want to share in what I'm trying to accomplish by building these companies and the personal growth that they experience. Now, that being said, people have to be paid a fair wage and they have to be able to meet their needs. But studies have shown that once people make a certain amount of money, additional money and bonuses doesn't motivate them. Something else is at play.
$78,000.
Exactly.
I mean, it's probably a little more than that, but I mean, the studies show that the marginal increase in compensation after $78,000 versus happiness is there's no correlation. It becomes.
And the interesting thing is that as humans, we think that we're really bad predictors of what brings us success initially. Our knee-jerk reaction is, yeah, more money, more happiness. But study after study show that that's just not the case.
There are a lot of billionaires and centimillionaires out there who are absolutely miserable in their lives, even though they've got gobsmacked money.
Yep.
So what is it that brings you happiness in your life?
You know, I think I touched on it a little earlier, but the personal development, I like to be challenged. I like being uncomfortable. I do things that that make me uncomfortable. And it's funny because even though I go into those situations purposely, I immediately try to get out of them until I get my mind right. So I expose my body to extreme heat and cold at least once a day. So today I have a 5-minute cold plunge in about an hour where I get into icy cold water. And even though I've planned for it and I know it's going to happen, when I get into that water, I immediately want to jump out, but I give myself, and what's funny is the water is so cold that it's not bad after a minute because your body goes numb. And so I like those moments because I can mentally say, hey, no, this is what you bargained for. This is when you get better. And so it's not just with my body, although, you know, I go to the gym regularly. I try to push my physical limits. It's, you know, I'm dealing with some really serious and sensitive partnership issues right now, the last day or so. And I immediately want to remove myself from it. I want to quit and I want to run. And then when I have a couple of moments to myself where I'm like, hey, this is what I signed up for. This is what's going to make me a better person in 3, 5, 10 years. It's going to make me a better father. It's going to make me a better business partner. And so I look for and I cherish those moments in all aspects of my life, my spiritual life, with my family. You know, if my kids are just really being terrible, I try to cherish those moments and understand that is the good stuff in life.
So you have a really interesting perspective on what most people would consider to be very challenging stuff. You embrace the challenge. You embrace the suck.
Exactly. So I'm not 100% at it. And right. I'm always looking for new ways to challenge myself. But the idea is that and I was telling my wife this the other day, because we feel really comfortable in life. And that's why we started doing some, you know, exposures to heat and cold. It's like, hey, let's make ourselves uncomfortable, because if we don't make ourselves uncomfortable, the world is going to find a way to bring that to us.
So learning how to persevere and be resilient in the face of discomfort, both mental, physical, and maybe even spiritual discomfort, is a really powerful tool that you've developed.
100%. How
do you approach conflict in your business?
You know, I'm still figuring that out. I honestly, I'm you know, been doing this for over a decade, and so I'm trying to get to the point where deep breaths are involved, especially in those first few moments where it's like listen only. And I'm not 100% at this, and my partners will tell you that a lot of times I'm knee-jerk reactioning, or, you know, having a knee-jerk reaction to something. And but if you hear something, you know, blood pressure, heart rate goes through the roof, that is a great sign that you need to take a few moments and listen. And I've learned, especially with what's going on with my partners right now, that a lot of it just comes down to that. It's like, if we could listen to each other and we could talk to each other. Because as entrepreneurs, when something happens, we feel like we're the leader of the army, and we need to act like, we're calm, cool, collected. We have all the answers. And it's like, I think some of those things are true at times, but what serves us is a few moments of contemplation and realizing that 9 times out of 10 or 99 out of 100, it's not as bad as our fight or flight mentality is right. Telling us.
Exactly. So what kind of listening strategies do you use, especially when things are a little intense?
So, I mean, when I first encounter something, I try to give myself 15, 20 seconds of a breathing practice that I do, where I'll breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth, and I'll just try to keep a couple of, deep breaths. And I'm on the phone, and it creates some pretty awkward pauses. And so I'll let people know, hey, I just need a couple of moments to think this through. Just give me a second. And I think it's the breathing, because once I start going through some of those exercises, my mind automatically calms down.
Right.
And
yeah, we know that deep breathing, I mean, I don't know if you looked into my work at all, but we know that deep breathing is the one thing that we have access to that controls what's known as our polyvagal system, our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And when we breathe calmly, it's sending a message to the whole nervous system, hey, everything's cool. And so, I mean, it's a fundamental technique that, of course, has been taught for thousands of years. And it's interesting to hear that that's something that works really well for you. Do you really face much conflict in your business?
A lot.
Oh, really?
A lot. I mean, I don't know how to compare it to anybody else's, but there's a fire a day that where people are wanting to quit, or there's some serious issues, or there's a lawsuit, or that's just, and not every single business, but with what I do, there's something that is red alert to somebody once a day.
And you're the guy they turn to put out the fire?
Yeah. So the cool thing is that not everything gets to me, but the worst things do.
Of course. And that's the way it should be.
Yep.
I mean, you want people to be able to make decisions along the way and have the authority and agency to do that, so you don't get bogged down on all the minutia, and only the big deal stuff makes it to your attention.
Exactly.
Interesting. So listening is a powerful skill, breathing is a powerful skill, dealing with conflict is sort of an everyday thing you've got to deal with. Are you doing much coaching with the people that you're in business with? I mean, your partners and the leadership teams, are you coaching them and helping them get better?
I try, and I try not to force it on them, because they're my partners, and one of my partners is my brother. And so there's those relationships and I'm learning a lot from them also. There's a lot that I have to learn from them, from pretty much everybody around me. But I'll have moments, and especially with what's going on right now, I'll try to put in a thought or two of how I think things should have been handled, or how I might have handled them, or but the coaching aspect of what I do is more with people outside of my business. So, because I don't want my partners to feel like they're being coached, but I do try to rub off on them a little bit.
So it sounds like it's a bit of a balancing act that you have to work with.
Exactly right.
Wow. Well, one more question, and we'll bring this to a close. Tell me one thing about yourself that nobody would know about unless you revealed it.
Let's see. So when I was really little, I hated taking naps. And so I was probably maybe 4 years old. So old enough where I could get around and get into some trouble. My mom sent me into a room to take a nap, and I was bored, and I was hell bent on figuring out how to get out of that room and get out of my nap. And I found a pencil, an old school pencil with the rubber eraser on the end.
Right.
And I started messing with the pencil. I ended up shoving it up my nose. I pulled it out, and I realized, hey, this pencil looks a little different than when I put it in there.
Eraser.
The eraser stuck up there. I went and told my mom, hey, I got eraser stuck. She's like, get back in your room. I know what you're doing. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, come look. Anyway, I ended up having to go to a hospital to get that removed. So that doesn't come up very much in conversation.
Great story. Well, Allan, thank you so much for joining me. A fascinating story. And I know that everyone who's listening is just going to be agog at the work that you're doing. So thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
So before we go, if people wanted to reach out to you, where would they go? How would they find you?
I'm very active on social media, especially on Instagram. I'm Allan R. Draper, really easy to find. Also, I have a website, allandraper.com. A lot of entrepreneurs, business owners go there, schedule an appointment. I do 15-minute sessions with people, just see if it's a good fit. And if there's anything, a piece of advice or two, I can help with their business.
And you said you have 2 podcasts?
I have 2 podcasts. That's right. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
The one that would be most applicable to these, to your listeners, is the Business Growth Pod on all major platforms.
And that, what do you do on that podcast? What's your topic and who's your audience?
So I'm speaking to entrepreneurs that are within 6 months prior to starting their business up until a couple of years after starting their businesses, and we talk about a lot of the common issues and hurdles and how to overcome those.
And is that something where you're just monologuing, or do you have guests?
I'll do maybe once a quarter a solo episode. The rest of them I have guests.
Wow. Okay. Well, great, man. You sound like you've got a plate full of good stuff going on.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, absolutely.